Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. Very pleased to be joined by a very regular guest, not as often as we might like, but his schedule is super busy. But we do have him here tonight for the hour. Oshkosh City Manager Mark Rohloff is here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while, but I love coming on chatting.
Yeah, I love having you. You know, we just kind of shoot the stuff, and we were supposed to do this back in February, and due to personal issues, we had to reschedule you, and so I appreciate you being able to be here tonight. So we got lots to talk about. I've got some questions from citizens and some of my own. Let's start with the state of the city that just took place a couple of weeks ago in March. During that time, you, of course, gave your State of the City address, and you talked about some of your upcoming projects, some of your ongoing projects, and you are urging citizens to re-engage with our community, quote unquote. So we're going to talk about that. But there were 4 goals that you had outlined for future city policies. You would like to address diversity, equity, and inclusion within the city policies. And that's something that we've been, it's been bandied about for a number of years now. And the Oshkosh School District recently hired someone to take over that type of position. The university has one, and I'm not sure about the county. Do you know, does the county have a diversity person on
No,
staff?
they don't, and they recently disbanded their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So I think that...
So they're going backwards, it seems.
That was something that was made, and I think that makes our committee all the more important.
It sure does. Interesting that they would disband that committee. And then you also want to talk about special improvements policies. You want to improve fiscal relationships within the state, and you want to address homelessness. So I'm going to kind of start in a different order here. Let's talk about homelessness. What are your plans or initiatives for reducing the homeless population in this community, and at the same time increase affordable housing?
Yeah, this is something, the council actually had set these goals for me over and above our strategic plan. So those issues, all 4 of those issues are weaved into our strategic plan, but they said, Mark, we would like you to put some focus on that. And with the initial American Rescue Plan Act funds, we put a lot towards initiatives that were meant to address homelessness, whether it's prevention through some support to ADVOCAP, or whether it's some support to the Tiny Homes Project. The idea was address homelessness as much as we can. We can't control all of that, but one of the things I think we bring value to is at the table, are we there? Are we offering up whatever we can offer? We're not the social services agency. The county runs social services, human services. But we are there for a lot of other things. A lot of homeless congregate at our parks. Certainly it becomes a law enforcement issue. Certainly becomes a medical issue, and our fire department is essentially the first responders not only to emergencies but also to emerging issues. So County Executive Damel and I have spoken, and he would like to initiate something on a county-wide basis. So I'm going to be working with him specifically to bring groups together to address not just immediate homelessness, such as day by day, but also homelessness prevention and things we can do for people who are at risk of being homeless, and then also the transition out of that what's called acute homelessness, which is what day by day is for. But how do you get somebody into transitional housing? And that's where we've done some collaborations with COTS. The Community Foundation's done that too. So it kind of runs the whole gamut. With respect to your, you tied in also affordable housing. Mm-hmm. That's a bigger challenge because we don't control the housing stock. The private sector does that. We've done things to try to make things more affordable. One of the things we've done with our housing study is we're taking a look at our zoning code and what can we do to allow accessory dwelling units. fancy word for what used to be called mother-in-law houses, but it's that
What
type
are they
of
called? Accessory dwelling units?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the technical term in the zoning code. But it's do you provide additional housing units that can be on existing lots? And again, the old term used to be mother-in-law houses. I grew up in a neighborhood that had those types of houses. Granny houses is another term. But so
Granny
that
houses.
granny house, so that people. But one of the things we do very well over at the senior center is we do things to try to keep people in independent housing as much as possible. So those accessory dwelling units, if they can be close to a family member, then they get the best of all possible worlds. They get the love and closeness of the family member,
Right.
but also somebody can look on them on a regular basis, but they maintain some type of independence. So I think the zoning code is a part of that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, well, boy, I don't even know where to start with this one.
Where do you
Mark.
go off? You go 10 different directions.
Well, let's talk about the tiny home village for one thing. And that's situated north of town. That is something that has been set up exclusively for people who are transitioning out of like day by day. They're no longer going to be homeless. They'll go into a tiny home, and there's a whole village out there. How many homes are out there? Do you know?
There's 32 units.
32 units.
And it's really not intended for people such as day by day, because day by day are typically single people. This is meant for small families.
Okay.
It can be single parent or dual parent households, but it's I think the school district has demonstrated that they have a lot of kids whose addresses constantly change, and that's usually an indicator that they're couch surfing is the term, or they're living with other relatives, but then it's like they stay here and then they move there and they keep moving around.
But someone certainly could, and I wasn't suggesting that it's just for people coming out of day by day. That's just one place where they may come from, is from day by day if they get a job, or maybe they'll come from Father Carr's place to be. They get a job, they get on their feet a little bit, but they maybe can't afford a mortgage, which that's another whole kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Which is why this whole affordable housing thing is such a big issue, because, okay, so we've got the tiny home village, if you will, with 32 units, and that's a nice start. Why can we not, and I understand we're waterlocked and we're somewhat landlocked, but why can the city not, by the time this is over, you might want to wish there was something stronger in that. No, I'm just kidding. Why can the city not buy some property somewhere, or take some of the property that we have between you guys, the chamber, Go EDC, all you organizations work together, partner to change some of the zoning codes that you were talking about, and build some additional tiny homes that people can just buy. Because I truly think, Mark, I hear it every single day from somebody complaining about the fact can't afford the rent that's being charged in this community, can't afford to buy a home in this community. Interest rates have skyrocketed, and yet we have more and more people putting up these huge luxurious apartment complexes where the rent, you're lucky if you can get a single, like a studio or something like that for less than $850 or $900 a month. And we've got another place in town that they've got bowling alleys in as one of their amenities. Those are great amenities, but they come at a cost. Who can afford these rents? And they have to rent if they can't afford to buy a home, but they necessarily can't afford the rent either. What are people supposed to do? Why can't you guys as a community partner with other people and let's get some tiny homes built? Because I think some people would be willing to downsize.
Tiny homes are still very much, I'll say experimental. Maybe not be the best term, but on the spot, that's the best answer I can give. And I think the city is willing to look at this as a pilot project. If it works out, then we can take a look at it. But we want to make sure that any concerns that might be there from the closeness of people in a very small unit. We want to make sure that that doesn't create any problems. So it's not that we can't. I think we want to take a look at what tiny homes is doing. If they can prove that it can be workable, then we can take a look at it elsewhere. Anytime you put some new type of housing, there's always this fear that it's something that it may or may not be.
Sure. We don't have to have lots of homes, though. I mean, we could in one area, but I see, not a lot, but I do see single lots around town, says owned by the city of Oshkosh or whatever. And I know you guys don't want to be in the real estate industry, so, but you're selling this land. Why not sell it to someone who's willing to build a tiny home? Maybe they can get a loan for a tiny home, something that doesn't meet the criteria within the zoning code. But let's relax things a little bit so that it's easier for people to live in this community.
Well, that's part of looking at the zoning code, what types of things we can do. But the tiny homes, I think, are still a work in progress, and I think we have to see if they do well, and then can we apply that same principle elsewhere. I think smaller homes is something that we as a society need to take a look at, because while there may be some people that can afford, McMansions, but an 1,800 square foot home is priced at $350,000, $400,000. There aren't a lot of people that can afford that.
That's right.
And so we want to make sure that it's affordable for everybody. I think we have a strength that anytime we're on those lists of great places to live, and we're on a bunch of those lists. Oh my gosh, the housing is so affordable in Oshkosh. So it's a relative term. On a national level, people think this is the most affordable housing market in the country. And in a lot of respects, it is. But is that good enough for everybody right here, right now? And the answer is no, it's not. Because
I talked to a gentleman this week who's the executive director of a nonprofit, and he makes a decent living, but he can't afford to live here. He lives in another community and commutes here every day. And I think that that's really sad. We don't want people, just like we don't want brain drain when these kids graduate college and move elsewhere. We don't want brain drain, but I don't think we also want our people, having to commute in to work here and then commute out to go home at night. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. And here's the other thing now, okay? There was a study done by the city, and I don't know who participated in this study, but I'm quoting a developer of one of the very large proposed projects here. He said that the study done by the city, quote, clearly identified a need for more luxury multifamily housing as well as townhomes and condos, unquote. Who wants more luxurious housing in Oshkosh? Who took part in this study?
There was a market study that was done, and it showed that we have needs at both the high end and the low end. We know that people are coming to work for Oshkosh Corporation or Aurora or any of the other large employers.
And they could maybe afford that $350,000 home.
But we want them to be able to afford that $350,000 home in the city of Oshkosh because having just one segment of the population on the lower economic scale would just create a greater burden. Having that diversity, we can move that around and share that. We need more at the higher end as well, and we need the lower end. Even the term low-income housing isn't as low as you think because
it's changed, hasn't it?
There's a definition. The federal government has low-income housing, very low-income housing, and extremely low-income housing. Our need is more in the extremely low, in the very low, not necessarily in the low-income housing. So we've got to make sure that we're getting a good diversity of housing options available. And there is a need for townhomes and things like that for people who just want to, turnkey operation on every level, including sidewalks and gardening. They don't want any of that stuff. I find that very appealing, by the way. but that's me. But if there's somebody who just wants to be able to afford it, and the general rule of thumb is no more than 30% of your income should go towards housing. And if you're making $10 an hour, $20,000 a year, 30% of that, that doesn't go very far. That's
It
$6,000. That's $500 a month.
Yeah.
So that's just a quick math that says
Yeah.
$20,000, you're not going to be able to afford virtually anything in town. So number one, we have to find options that are more affordable, but also we've got to help people afford it and get more than $10 an hour.
That's why I would like to see the city, go EDC, the chamber. I would like to see all of you guys partnering on things that working with developers that do make more places true affordable housing. I mean, just in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've had the Brio building go up. That's not super high rent, but it's high enough. Then their parent company, Merge, is doing a bunch of other properties around the area. There's the proposed apartments in the 6th and 7th Avenue areas over getting toward the Pioneer Inn Drive. It's not right there, but it's in that area. We've got the Wit on Witzel Avenue. They're the ones with the bowling alleys. Then we've got a proposed 522 unit, 6-phase project by Lake Butamore. And I know that all of these places, they're top of the line, or the most bedrooms in a unit, they're going to be close to $2,000, between $1,500 and $2,000. And I don't view that as affordable housing. I really don't, especially when it starts getting to that $2,000 mark. And that 522 unit, by the way, by the time this show airs, it may have been voted on, because the council's voting on it Tuesday night, right? The 11th?
They're voting on phase 1, which is 80 units.
Okay, so phase 1 is 80 units. Okay. Is there TIF money going into that project?
No, there's no
money.
TIF. There's no
Okay.
TIF out there or anything like
So
that.
if it fails, and it's all on them. And, well, even with a pay-go type TIF, we don't really lose.
No, but
but
eventually
still.
I anticipate that we're going to need to do something in the northern area to trigger single-family houses. Now, I would say all housing is affordable. It's just, who is it affordable to?
There you go.
And that's real. So we know that 27% of the people that work at the Oshkosh Corp headquarters commute. If we can,
How much?
27%.
27%.
So
Wow.
one in 4.
Okay.
So with that, knowing that statistic, we need to provide housing so that those folks can work there, and they can't afford that type of housing. So it's making sure that we make housing available for them, and that the general market can take care of. We don't need to necessarily subsidize that. I can tell you, I've been asked plenty of times about that, and the only apartments that we've really done anything like that to are the redevelopment areas right here in the downtown area, where they're taking over some land that's been had environmental concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anything to help make it affordable means the developer's going to expect some type of subsidy. So it's a question of what level do we go to make that, because we're already pretty generous in our TIFs in the downtown area to address environmental concerns and things like that. We're given about 90% of the tax increment on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
Usually it's 75 to 90%. So when you're given that much, to get them to add affordable units, you got to do more. And I know one thing about math: you can't do more than 100%. Everybody says it gives you 110%. They can't give you 110%, nor can the city. You can give 100%, but then you're giving everything away, and we don't even pay for the administrative costs of running a TIF.
Right.
So we got to figure out a way that we have to make housing more affordable just in the first place. So we're going to take a look at our subdivision code. Are there things we can do to lower those costs? There's going to be a lot of discussions about what improvements are necessary. Asphalt versus concrete.
Oh, I'm glad. That's one of my questions further
Sidewalks
Yep.
versus no sidewalks. And that's a very much there's a lot of value discussions that are there, because there are people who feel very strongly about having sidewalks, but it's like it costs, and a sidewalk square's several $100s for a single sidewalk square these days.
Just one square.
One square, $300+. So you eliminate a sidewalk, and you've eliminated a lot of cost. But
both to the city and the homeowner, I will say.
But you're also taking away something, and it's like, why do they choose urban living? Is because they want the urban amenities. You want to be able to walk to here and there in different places. And in suburbia, maybe that's not as important. And I've been in those suburban areas, and no, we don't want sidewalks. And it's like, okay, and they're okay with people walking on the street. So it really, it's a value discussion.
I understand. It is. When we talk about affordable housing, you're right. It's not all affordable to everybody. I guess that's the way to look at it. But I do know this much. I think that if you have too high of rent prices, people can only sustain that for so long, and then they're not going to be able to afford it, and they're going to start becoming delinquent on their rent. They'll get thrown out, and before you know it, some of these apartments, that have this pie in the sky idea about things, they may be sitting with a lot of vacancies. It seems to me that it would be smarter to move people in at a lower rent rate so that you can maintain 100% occupancy. Because right now, Brio building, they've been at near to full occupancy, I think, since they've been open. And I'm not just knocking them, but other places, we don't know what their occupancy is going to be like. And we're talking hundreds of units, and pretty fancy schmancy units, and I don't think that people need all that fanciness, and all of that comes at a price too, and it's factored into your rent. Now, the buildings that are allowing pets, that are offering dog parks, I think that's a wonderful amenity. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a dog owner. I'm a homeowner. I don't plan on moving into an apartment. Although there are days it might be nice, when you don't want to get out and shovel snow. But I just think that it makes more sense to truly make it affordable for the majority of people in the community, because right now the majority of the people in this community can't afford those high rents. And what are they supposed to do? Where are they supposed to go?
I think the key is, and this is going to be a long iterative process, but the key isn't with making housing affordable with new housing, it's making housing affordable with existing housing. So you've got, it's a lot cheaper to purchase, some older places and do a little rehab than build straight up. So I think the key is going to be in a lot of existing housing. And that's, whether it's partnering with the neighbor, Greater Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods, that group. We've been having discussions with a group called NeighborWorks in Green Bay. We've gone back and forth the entire time I've been here, Cheryl. And, we think we might be in a position. They've done some things to help make affordable housing. Certainly, Habitat for Humanity has been a wonderful partner here.
Yeah, but they can only build so many houses a year.
That's all anybody can do, and you can't do everything. So you get what you can out of each and every group, and I think that's what we got to bring these different groups together and say, what can you bring to the table? What can you bring to the table? No one person or agency, including the city, can bring everything. So I kind of use the stone soup analogy. It's like everybody brings something to contribute. Hopefully, I'm not bringing the rock, but
I haven't heard that story.
You've never heard the old story of stone soup?
I don't think so.
3 guys roll into town, and they're just like, they're poor. They have no money. They have nothing, so they decide to make stone soup, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" So they put 3 rocks in a pot of boiling water. Then somebody says, "Well, I have carrots, and I have a bone, I have a little meat, I have some potatoes," and soon you got this. It's a communal lesson to say we all bring something, but none of us can bring everything.
Right.
And these 3 guys basically scammed their way into getting soup, but it was really more a lesson about coming together as a community and offering whatever you can give to to this. That's a story from grade school, Cheryl.
Well, I'm old, Mark. I may have forgotten it. Maybe I did once upon a time hear it, but stuff like that would generally stick with me. So
now you got Mark's stone soup story. I
got
view that
it.
in so many ways because we can't do everything.
Right.
But we need to be at the table. In the homelessness issue or the affordable housing issue, we've got to be there.
Yeah. And, you know, these are issues that are all over the place. It's not just unique to Oshkosh. But this is where we all live, so this is why I'm talking about it. And, you know, I mean, you know what they had to do in some cities because the rents were just getting out of control. It's called rent control. And, you know, I'm not suggesting that that's the be-all and end-all answer to anything. But, you know, if we get to a point where, you know, the better majority of the people in your community aren't able to either buy a home or rent an apartment somewhere, you know, then maybe rent control is the issue. I don't want to hear from a bunch of developers and landlords about this. I was a landlord too, and I know that I made it affordable for my tenants, while others were getting stupid rich on things, but they weren't taking care of their tenants the way I was, and you know, and that made me feel good knowing that I was actually not in it just to make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the problem is everywhere. It's a countrywide thing. And I think that at some point we're going to be, as a country, in the same position, just a little different look than we were in 2008 when we had the real estate bubble. You know, people cannot sustain these high interest rates and these huge price points for homes or the huge rent rates. They just can't. But while we're talking about projects, where
We've gotten through one topic, so we better get rolling.
I know it, but I do want to find out from you. But it's a big topic.
Big issue, absolutely.
It is. So I want to find out where things are at with the development. I'm spacing out on the name right now, but it's over in the 6th and 7th Avenue area.
Well, there's the Boatworks property, and then there's the Sawdust District, the Mill on Main. So which one? The one over by the old...
Mill on Main. That's the one I'm thinking of.
That's the T-Wall development, yeah.
Yep. Where is that at?
We're finalizing the development agreement, and there's always some little things that we're doing to make sure that everybody's protected appropriately. T-Wall is ready to break ground. I anticipate we'll be bringing the development agreement to council on April 25th.
Oh, okay.
And they're ready to get started. I had a meeting with them where I think we kind of closed the deal, but now we're in the details. But we closed the general requirements of the deal in terms of making sure that the developer completes the project. And so we have some disincentives because, you know, we're giving them the land. So, but there's disincentives if they don't complete. And it's not that I fear that, but I have to protect the city. So we worked that out just last month. I think we're going to be, by the 25th, we should have it done. And I think they'll break ground.
And is that just for the first phase? Because there's 3 buildings there,
We're in the development agreements intended to cover all 3 phases.
Okay.
And so we want to make sure that all 3 phases get done. We did something very similar with Merge, which you just mentioned with the Brio building.
And they're putting up a bunch of other stuff around there, too.
But the incentive grows with each subsequent development because we want them to complete it. We just don't want them to do one and then watch the other 2 just lay there doing nothing. So there are incentives in that one.
Sure.
We worked it out a different deal. It just, each developer puts their deals together differently, and we have to, and I try to listen to understand, all right, you know, they're there to make money. How are you making money? I'm happy to help you make money, but it's still got to protect the city's interests. So we put a disincentive in this one. And if they don't complete, they're going to pay us. They're going to pay us money if they don't finish. So it's just a different way. You just carrot or stick.
Yep.
Pick which one you want to use. So with Brio, it's a little more carrot, and it's a little more stick with the Sawdust development.
Well, so we want them to develop. We want them to complete. But I also, as a citizen and taxpayer, I want them to, you know, stay full. I don't want them to sit empty because then they fail, and we've got a bunch of eyesores sitting around, you know. We don't need any more of that. All right, let's talk about your goals here. So we've talked about, you know, addressing the homelessness, which
It's a world peace issue.
Sneakily rolled in the affordable housing thing. So let's talk about the, you know, hiring someone to address, or how you're going to address diversity, equity, and inclusion within the city policies. And how will the citizens benefit from that?
I think that, well, first of all, the council specifically asked me to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion and sustainability practices into the day-to-day operations of the city. I think for the most part, council was a little unengaged on it, and now they want to be engaged, and they want staff to be engaged. So we've got a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan that was finally adopted by the DEI committee about 2.5 years into their. It took a while to get that all done.
Yeah.
Sustainability's had theirs for a number of years, and the council's asked us to incorporate more of that in. So we've instituted, for example, some diversity, equity, and inclusion measures and goals within departments. So those are some of the things we're doing to implement that. We added somebody in human resources to work specifically on recruitment, and that's a huge issue regardless. So what's in it for everybody is, do you want workers when getting workers is really tough? We need to demonstrate that we are an employer of choice, and younger people are looking for, we want to know that you're not only welcoming me, but you're welcoming my friend who may not be like me, but they're still my friend. Or I want to know that even if they're not my friend, I want you to do that.
Yeah.
So I think there's and I've been trying to impress upon the staff that there is an economic imperative for this, so that there's what's in it for me. Let me tell you what's in it for you. You know, we talk about, you know, people want to sell their houses and, you know, move to Florida. If that's your goal, we have 20% minority students in the Oshkosh area school district. So my question for you is, who's buying your house? Mm-hmm. And if we don't help our low-income residents, if we don't help our residents of color, the answer is not them. Mm-hmm. And then what happens to your house? You have 20% of the population that has no interest in buying your house because they can't afford it. Well, then your price just went down because you don't have as good a market. So I think impressing the economic imperative and the economic incentive for people, I think that's part of it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the larger corporations in town have embraced this. Several of them have diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. They are recruiting on a global basis. And they're not just recruiting at UW-Oshkosh and Green Bay and Madison. They're recruiting all over the world. Or they're trying to recruit somebody from Madison, trying to just get them come up Highway 151.
Sure.
If we're not viewed as a welcoming community, they're not even going to apply. Or they're going to go back to their significant other and say, you know, there's nobody like us here. Mm-hmm. Or they don't welcome us. So I think there's a very good economic imperative. And I kind of stole this from something 30 years ago when I was in California. And a Hispanic friend of mine was in HR, human resources, and he kind of used that same shtick. He was like, here's the profile of our population, and you want to go sell your house and move to Idaho. Who's buying your house? And who's buying your house or my house? So if we want to go to Florida, or if we want to simplify our lives and go to a smaller place, who's buying our house and paying what we want for that house?
Right.
Well, if we don't create economic opportunity for our entire population, if we carve off a portion of our population, we've just devalued our house.
So
there's Mark's economics, socioeconomics, DEI perspective on the world right there in one fell swoop.
But when they go back home and they talk to their husband, wife, significant other, whatever, or whoever, they also, not only are they going to say, there are people there who look like us or there aren't, but they're also going to say, the housing is affordable. See, so it
You're
comes,
going back to number one. We're never going to get
comes
done.
full
We're going to do a
circle.
4-hour show.
It comes full circle.
It absolutely does. But if they're getting recruited, they're generally getting recruited by the ones who have they can afford that level of housing. But they
Yes.
also are going to look for how are they taking care of their lesser fortunate
Sure.
ones.
Sure.
And I always say they don't run back and go to their spouse, oh my gosh, they've got the best sewers in Oshkosh. It's just not that. All that infrastructure stuff is a given. You better have that. That's
Yeah.
a minimum requirement.
Well,
But do they have good parks, good schools?
Do they have
is
good
it
streets,
welcoming?
which is something else I want to talk about?
Yep, but it
Streets.
is. But if they don't meet the minimum stuff, the other stuff doesn't matter. So
True. Yep, that's true. Improving, let's see, special improvements policies. What exactly is that, and how are you going to address that issue?
it's really it's special assessments.
Oh, okay.
It's the special assessments, and that's been
Okay.
a bugaboo for the council for 10 years. And about 5 years ago, they came to a juncture and said they didn't necessarily want to go with a transportation fee. That has still evolved. That hasn't gone away. But there's a couple fears.
Are you talking about the wheel tax?
Not the wheel tax.
Okay,
You may have
something
heard something different, because
Okay.
the wheel tax, in my opinion, is not equitable, because vehicles over 8,000 pounds are exempt from it. So businesses
That's
wouldn't-
dumb.
But that's the
They're
law.
They're the ones causing the majority of the damage.
Yeah, I always say, you and I make the width of the road. The trucks make the depth of the road.
Yes.
And they're both expensive.
Yeah.
But so because that's exempted,
Okay.
I've got a concern about the wheel tax.
Yeah.
And it's called the vehicle registration fee, but you got me sucked into say wheel tax. But I think there's an inequity there.
It sure sounds like it.
So the idea behind a transportation utility fee, and we've been working with a firm based up in Appleton, and they've been working throughout the state. And I've known this person working on this. He's been working on this very concept for probably 25 years. And I saw this concept also 40 years ago, Cheryl, when I started out in this business. This was done in Fort Collins, Colorado in 1984.
Okay.
So the concept is you take a look at different land uses, and there's a manual that's put out by traffic engineers that says statistically how much our homes generate in terms of trips a day, how much a fast food restaurant, a grocery store, a mall, a factory, all of those things. How much traffic they generate, and then take all that traffic and distribute the cost of a system and say, per trip, it's going to cost X dollars. And it's about 9 to 10 trips a day for a single family house. So if it's 50 cents a trip, then you multiply it by 10, and it's about $5 per month or whatever. That's how the concept works.
Wow.
So the council has seen our costs for special assessment grow, and we've had people make impassioned pleas, and it's an affordability issue. And it gets into your issue about affordable housing, because this makes housing less affordable. So is there an alternative to do that, to spread that out over a larger area? And is it better to say have a $4 or $5 a month transportation fee and eliminate special assessments? Mm-hmm. So if you paid special assessments last year, you're not going to be too hip about, you mean I'm still paying these special assessments and now I'm paying this fee? There are a lot of people that don't like that. Meanwhile, you got somebody that says, you're going to hit me with a $20,000 assessment. How am I going to pay that cost? I would much rather pay something over my lifetime, once, $5 a month. So it's the old pay me now or pay me later. There is some movement at the state level to fight this. The village of Pewaukee, using a very similar approach, not very exactly as I just described it. We were looking at the same thing. They've been taken to court by Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, even though I don't think they have standing, the state chamber is suing them. And they've threatened to sue us if we were to do that. So we're watching the Pewaukee case. I fear that even if, and Pewaukee prevailed at circuit court, but you know where it's going next.
Yep.
It's going to
Yep.
it's going to Supreme Court eventually. Where's the Supreme Court going to weigh in? Even if the Supreme Court says, yep, cities have a right to do that, and I absolutely believe we have a right to do it, whether you choose to do it is a different thing. But if the state then takes it away, think about a subject I know you know about with rental housing inspections.
Yeah.
We instituted a program, and the state prohibited it.
Yeah.
So is the state
Yeah.
going to pull the rug out from under us? So the council said, take a look at something in addition to the transportation fee option. We understand the transportation fee. We understand how it will work. What other options exist? Well, the options exist on how you distribute special assessments and how you assume those. We could assume all of them. We could just eliminate them and put them on our tax bill by borrowing more. But then our costs go up. So it's, how do you pay for this stuff? None of it's free.
Yeah.
And if we say the city's paying for it, it's not the city. It's taxpayer Cheryl and taxpayer Mark and everybody else. So
That's true.
That's a challenge.
All right. Well, let's talk about your goal of improving fiscal relationships within the state. Who are you talking about there, Mark?
A couple things. One is the legislature and making them aware of these issues. And I've been working on this for a couple of years now. One of the things the council gave me, it was a backhanded compliment, and they said, you have a lot of years of experience, and you also have some goodwill. We want you to make good use of that and start, being more active at the state level. I've been participating in a committee that consists of representatives from the League of Cities, which represents cities and villages, the Towns Association, Towns Counties Association. And I've been a member of a group that's been working for the past 2 years on this very issue. We've presented our findings to members of the legislature and to the governor. And you've heard independently the governor mention it at the State of the State address and his budget presentation, and also the legislature, which is controlled by the other party, is also listening to this. And our simple phrase is, the system of funding local government's broken and needs to change. So we're having that discussion. So there is talk about trying to do something with shared revenue. I think it should be blown up and reset and redistributed. But when you look over the last 30 years, sales tax revenues in the state have gone up 50% in the last 30 years. Shared revenue to states, to local governments from the state, which is supposed to be sales tax and income tax, income tax gone up 50%. Ours has gone down 20%. So it's just, there's an unfairness. I think the legislature and the governor both get it. So now there's the political stuff. But I think we presented them with some good information. So that's part of it. And they're just like, keep it up, Mark. Please keep it up. And you're going to see more of it, and you're hearing more of it. It's gotten to our legislators and the governor's office. So I'm not totally naive, but I'm more optimistic than I've been, Cheryl, in 25 years.
Well, that's a good sign. And along with that come the unfunded mandates. The state puts all these mandates on you, but they don't give you any money with which to do it. Then when you try to do it, then they say, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so what the hell are you supposed to do?
So we're trying to figure out all of those issues, but we've come across as, I've been told, you guys are whiny. And it's like, okay, but what do you propose to fix it? But
well,
I think
continue to be whiny because, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
I'm squeaking.
Let's see. This is, let me ask this. Who's in charge of maintaining the WIOUWASH trail? Is it the city or is it the county?
It is transitioning from the county to the city.
Okay.
You recall when the Butamore Bridge was redone over Interstate 41, there was a trail put in there. That trail is the county's responsibility. So as part of that, the WIOUWASH trail was to get transferred over from the county to the city.
Okay.
But there was supposed to be some improvements done before the keys were turned over to us.
Okay.
Those things haven't been done yet.
Well, here's something that came from someone, and it talks about, a lot of the Oshkosh citizens who live along the trail, and they feel that the city has neglected the trail and left it in disrepair. And let's see, specifically in 2016 and 2017, City Manager Mark Rohloff co-signed, authorized, and supported American Transmission Company's wanton cutting of all trees along the east side of the trail, which has increased noise for all citizens along the trail and decreased natural beauty for all who enjoy the trail. Since this time, the City of Oshkosh's contractor, I don't know how to pronounce this, Asplund.
Okay. It's
Okay.
not our contractor.
Okay. Has left countless large logs and trees along the trail, and I've seen those, and it's terrible looking, causing harm to all residents by inducing the growth of noxious weeds, infestations of chipmunks and other pests, and significantly increasing highway noise and reducing enjoyment of nature. So, how much of this is Oshkosh's responsibility? Because I'll tell you, I saw all those logs and everything back there. It's a mess, and it does not look pretty at all.
Yeah. It's still not in our jurisdiction, but there's really two issues there. So the issue with American Transmission Company, I wish I had the authority the folks thought I had, and I went out and visited a couple of the folks, and ATC has been granted easements from a lot of different people where they have the right to cut. Private property owners gave them that right many years ago, and they are allowed to they have a lot of leeway. In terms of cleaning up, I can take a look and see if there's any area in our jurisdiction, but right now, if it's in the WIOUWASH trail, the WIOUWASH trail is still county responsibility.
I can tell you where I saw it. It is in between Riverside Cemetery and the trail. So it does not go on the west side of the trail. It stays on the east side.
So it stays on the cemetery side?
Yes.
Yeah. Then I would have to check with our Parks Department because
Yeah, it looks awful.
you're really splitting the hairs here, and I don't know which side of the hair we're on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
that's
fine.
that's a legitimate issue.
Yeah.
It's not that we can't do anything, but we don't have authority to do anything. We can complain, but they have certain rights, and they exercise those rights, and they may think they're going to clean up, and then they don't come back, and then we have to do things. But our Parks Department is involved because they care. It's near the cemetery and everything. So, but I don't know the specific answer to that,
Okay.
Cheryl.
All right. Well, we're running out of time, and I'll take on that responsibility. But I think affordable housing was a big issue we needed to address. So,
Yeah.
You talked about asphalt versus concrete. Can't we do asphalt streets?
We can. It's really a matter of there's a life cycle analysis that's done when you take a look at streets and compare the cost. Because the cost of asphalt, generally asphalt's cheaper, straight up. But our old public works director, Dave Potek, used to tell me about the wonderful limestone that comes out of Oshkosh quarries. And he said, we get more life out of our limestone, which is put into the concrete, than a lot of other areas. And I can't give you all the details because I don't understand them.
Well,
but
that's an interesting statement that he made because why do our streets look worse than anybody else's? And we're always hearing, well, in winter, snow and ice melt and it turns into water and it gets in between the cracks, and then when it freezes, it expands and it makes these potholes and it makes this, that, and the other. Well, other communities have the same problem. I look at Fond du Lac, I look at Neenah, Menasha, Appleton, even Omro, And I don't see streets in disrepair like I see in Oshkosh. Why can't we do something once and for all that doesn't make us look like we're a poor community?
Well, this is about replacing streets. That's different, and it's maintaining streets. So asphalt creates cracks, and you get alligator cracks within a few years. So it's about being able to afford to maintain the streets. But once you get those streets, concrete streets last longer, period. Do concrete streets last forever? Heavens no. And they start to show age and wear and tear. And it's about maintaining that. It's about sealing cracks and things like that. Concrete doesn't crack as quickly, but once it does, once you get water in, you're chasing it. Concrete will hold up longer than asphalt will. So they both work. They both work differently. Asphalt, if you get 25 years out of asphalt, you're really good. You can get 40, 50 years, and we've let them go a lot longer than that with concrete streets, and that's the problem. We aren't replacing them at the rate we should be replacing them at.
Yeah, because then our taxes would be even higher.
But I would argue that if you take a look at the Fond du Lacs and some of the other communities, they have the same challenge. We all use a rating system called PASER. It's a rating system of rating streets 1 to 10, 10 being brand new, 1 being awful. And our average is probably in the 5 range. Closer to the 6 range. It used to be in the 5 range. So we've gone up a whole single digit in the 15 years I've been here.
Yeah. And maybe
still not enough.
Maybe the other communities are charging higher taxes, but I mean, I've got a friend who lives in Appleton, in a very nice section of Appleton, and their property taxes are about the same as mine are on my house. And it's light years apart in comparison, with my home with theirs, and the street that I live on, and as compared to theirs, and so forth. So it's our taxes are already super high. Maybe some of these other places are charging higher taxes. Maybe they're doing other things besides the property taxes. I don't know, but it will forever stick with me. And I don't know if I don't think you were the city manager at that time. Some Japanese folks came, and they said, as they were being given a tour around the city, they said to then city manager, whoever it was, this must be a really poor community because your streets are so awful. And that, when you're trying to show off your community, that's a horrible thing for people from another country to say. That wasn't you, right? You were
No,
not,
I don't.
okay.
I don't remember that.
It might have been Dick. Oh my God, I'm spacing out on his name all of a sudden.
Dick Wallink.
Wallink, yes, it might have been him.
I think we made mistakes many years ago that we're still paying for.
Yes,
the
I agree.
sins of our sins of our fathers, so to speak. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. Water rates, they're going up again. I'm so sick of my water bill going higher and higher and higher. When is this going to stop?
Well, you've got to pay for those improvements that we've done. We haven't done a rate increase in like 5 years, so 5-6 years. So part of it is if you average it out, it's like 3% a year. But we waited because of all the delays that were held up because of the Clearwells project.
Yes.
And it really wasn't all the drama you saw at the local level. It was more the Department of Natural Resources and the Public Service Commission arguing over the size of our pumps at the plant. So we're like, we'll do it when we get the green light on the Clearwells project, and never got it. So this is an increase that doesn't even include the Clearwells project. So I'm not trying to blow sunshine anywhere, because I'm telling you we're going to have another increase, a sizable increase after the Clearwells project is done.
Thanks, Mark.
I don't
news.
come here just to blow sunshine, because I got to be honest with people.
Yeah.
But we haven't done a rate increase since, I believe, 2017, 2018. So it's 5-6 years.
Is there a way for citizens, because these ongoing increases could potentially put someone out of their home, if they are on a really, really tight, limited income. You know, I know that people can go to like Wisconsin Public Service and get assistance on their heat and electric bills. Does the city have any kind of relationship with anyone where people can get assistance for their water bills?
There are programs like through AdvoCap if somebody is in rough shape. If somebody doesn't like their water bill, that the program doesn't exist for that. It really exists for somebody who is in rough shape.
Well, right. If you can't afford it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's AdvoCap.
AdvoCap.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because even the electric company, they have to get Public Service Commission to do any type of incentive program, and they generally haven't approved those incentive programs. So you usually get them the back door through programs like AdvoCap.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to talk about a couple good things in our few remaining minutes here. There's a proposed sale of Best Western Premier on North Main Street.
Yeah, that sale has gone through.
It has gone through.
It's owned by the Scarlet Hotel Group out of Chicago area. So they've already taken over, and they've got the same. Dan Shetter, the old general manager, retired, but they promoted somebody before the sale, and Dave Helgerson is still the manager and everything, and doing a great job. So they're looking at potentially putting a different flag on the hotel, which would require completely renovating the furniture and the fascia type of stuff. But I think we're going to see that in probably the next couple of years.
All right. The Oshkosh Fire Department is now using GPS technology for getting calls, so that they can determine which fire stations or which fire trucks are closer to
at that moment in time, not just saying,
it's in real time.
This is near Station 19, so let's send it to Station 19. No, they know Station 19 is somewhere else, so they direct somebody else.
Does
Very
the police
great
department
technology.
use anything
They've
like
been
that?
using that for years.
Okay, good. All right. AquaHawk, we don't even have time to really talk about it, but basically, if you want to see what your water bills are, on an hourly basis, I mean, it's amazing. You can check this out. It's an AquaHawk product. You don't have to buy anything. You just log on and sign up. It's oshkwi.aqua.us. Again, oshkwi.aquahawk.us.
And it's on our website, so look for that. And you
go to the City of
Oshkosh's
website.
We'll get you there.
All right. You guys need people on boards and commissions. I wanted to go through each of the boards and commissions and talk a little about what they do, but no time for that. So again, go to the city's website and check it out. They need good people to serve on these boards and commissions. And then also, just real quickly, where did it go? Where did it go? I had it here. Oh, Keeney Island. Are we making any progress with putting anything up on that island?
Talking about Pioneer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Art Dumke, local
he's the owner,
developer. He's owning it. He still is waiting for the right thing, but he is actually working with staff right now. He would like to at least put some activity out there, and so he is working with staff to bring back the Tiki Bar for the summer. So keep an eye out for that. I don't think we've talked about a ton of that out there, so you may have just gotten a breaking story. I mean, Art's talking about it, but we haven't talked about it because we're still working with them on it.
A Tiki Bar. All right.
Yeah, the old Tiki Bar that used to be at the Pioneer. He would like to bring that back with some food trucks and stuff like that, and just bring some excitement to the river.
All right. They're telling me wrap up.
All right.
All right. Mark, thanks. We got to have you on more frequently so that we've got time to get through all this.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much for being here. Thanks to you guys, as always, and thanks to my crew. We will see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.